Good evening, everybody, and welcome to week 5 of Britball with the Breens. I'm trying to hold myself from laughing there again because Chris was doing some of his moves in the background. Again, we've just witnessed one of the games for this week finish, which we did a preview for yesterday. So that will be one of the things we discuss this week. Well, we do have another guest, a quite distinguished guest this week, very experienced in coaching American football, and someone that I think a lot of people could learn a lot from listening to this guy. Um, and really, we've spoke to him a couple of times, and his team so far this season look like they've started off at a very decent level. So, without further ado, our guest this week is Mr. Steve Rains, the head coach of the Solent Thrashers. So we'll introduce him. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening. Hi, nice to be here.
How's things going down south?
Well, really well so far. Obviously, strange year, so you don't really know what the effect of lockdown has been on teams. How quickly people been able to get their teams up and running and back on track. We're pleased with the way things have gone at the Thrashers so far. We've got a lot of new players, I think about 25 new faces, some new coaching staff as well. So we're really pleased with the way things have settled down.
Yeah, it certainly looks like one of the things we were interested in was obviously we've seen teams go from Division 1 and go up to the Prem over the last couple of years and do extremely well. And you guys had such a massive squad in the final in 2019 that we thought, oh, these guys are set up for Premiership life. And obviously Sussex ran everybody close in Division 1 in 2019.
Yeah.
So to go there and have two not victories, it must have you feeling pretty confident you can compete against the Premiership teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, you would say, yeah, things are going absolutely in the right direction. Of course, we've played one team so far, so the benchmark is against the same opponent. So I think it will be interesting to see how things go against the next opponent. Obviously, the next opponent is the Sussex Thunder again for the third time. But then we've got the London Olympians, and that will, I think, give us a clearer idea of where we are.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about this is we don't know who's going to win. We'll discuss this later, but we have no idea who's going to win between the Olympians and the Blitz this year, and really we don't know if the Olympians have improved or the Blitz have come down a notch or whatever. But that game being scheduled in is an absolute cracker for everybody in Britball, knowing that when this game comes up, it's going to be extremely interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're delighted to have the game because it will give us a really good idea for next year. Yeah, I'm sure people will continue to progress as we get back into some form of normality, but it will give us a good benchmark for where we sit for next year.
Yeah, and just for people that haven't normally seen our show or don't know anything about you, Steve, you've been at a lot of different places to coach American football.
Yeah, I've been around a long time. This is a way. That was a very diplomatic way, Sean, of saying you're old. Right? So yeah, I've been around a long time. So I started on the Isle of Wight with the White Rhinos, and then the first of my 3 periods at the Farnham Knights, and I've coached for about 35 years as a head coach. Yeah, not quite that long because I was special teams coach at the start and then offensive coordinator. Also done 1 or 2 bits in university football, and I'm now head coach of Bournemouth University as well. So, and I've had a degree of success because I've had some great players play for me. So, I hope it keeps going.
Yeah, and it'd be great. Like as we've said before, not just Kent Exiles coming up and challenging these big boys, but it'd be good if we can get Solent coming up and challenging these big boys. And And even Manchester at the moment look great, and it'd be nice to see how they go up against the Blitz and that going forward. I'm not sure right now if anyone's going to compete with the Warriors, if I'm honest, but we won't really know. They play for the first time this weekend, and it'll be telling.
They have a big habit of keeping us all in the dark anyway,
Yeah.
so we've actually got no idea about them at all.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon, in the immediate future. But if you look at it, all the teams that dominate at some point, they have a dip and somebody else takes over. So the Olympians, don't forget, were dominant for a long time. And then some team in Surrey came along and won one national championship in 2004.
Oh yeah, who was that? Farnham, that's right. It was you. Yeah, Steve was telling us about that. So it's one thing that we've got to give a shout out today is obviously, if you don't know already, Steve is unfortunately contracted COVID. Our grid and hub lead, unfortunately, is in hospital at the moment. So we obviously send our best wishes out to Steve. But
Steve.
On the other hand, here, the first thing we're going to speak about is this Dan Smith Memorial game. So obviously it's been going on. I'll be honest, I actually haven't had the chance to watch it. But Chris was watching it. So Chris, what was the game like? I hear it was a bit of a blowout, was it?
Yeah, well, unlike Sean, I don't have any friends, so I spend my Saturdays at home. I mean the scoreline was 61-0. And it kind of really tells you all you need to know. Tamworth looked more dominant this time round. I think, the Steelers' defense looked okay to start with, but they were just on the field constantly. They couldn't get off. And whenever they did, the offense gave the ball straight back. The big difference for me between the Tamworth team we've seen today and the Tamworth team we've seen against Leicester was the run game. I think 4 or 5 different running backs went in at one point. A backup quarterback scored a rushing touchdown as well. Like, Sandwell just couldn't slow the run game down, and because he couldn't slow the run game down, there was a lot more passing lanes open, and just generally it made everything a lot easier. On the defensive side of the ball, they gave up a couple of big pass plays, and probably should have given up a couple more, but there was a couple of very easy drops made by some Sandwell receivers, guys that were well downfield. Sandwell look like what we kind of think they are at the moment. They're a team in a little bit of turmoil. They've went through 2 head coaches since the end of 2019. Their new offensive coordinator, sort of our guests the other week, David Butler, he came in, he's had 6 days to put an offense in place. I mean, nobody is that good.
No, not against
no matter
Tamworth.
what level, nobody is that good. So, they've clearly got some things to sort out. But yeah, generally Tamworth will be pleased because it looked more like the Tamworth we expect. But I think that was also probably helped by sort of the lackluster level that Sandwell played at.
Yeah, and I think what is interesting here is you're right. Tamworth, one of the things that matchups I pointed out in our preview is the offensive line of Tamworth versus the defensive line of Sandwell. The defensive line of Sandwell in 2019 was great. Like, I mean, Steve, you'll know, you played against them in the final.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it took a while to break them down. And they've been tough. But over the years, the Tamworth O-line has been dominant. So it's obvious that they went back to that run game. They've really dominated the line of scrimmage to get the running backs going. And it'll be interesting to see if they carry that on, because obviously the really big test they have is Leicester next time they play them. And really that'll be where they see if they've really improved that much as the seasons went on. As a Sandwell, as you said, I think the best thing for them is the fact that it's not their Premiership season here. Yes. Now the way the things are, they've now got a year to just prepare for being in the Premiership. And if that means taking new lads in and getting them up to speed and working them through, then that can only be a positive right now. Get some new coaching in, all this kind of things, and really hope to have their team ready for that Premiership season next year. So, but okay, that's great. I hope really at the end of the day, I hope they raise a load of money for the charity for Dan Smith. I think that is the most important thing for for the game today. So, without further ado, I'll look into this and put up our usual first slide. So I'll just share the screen. So sadly, we lost. Sadly, we lost another team to the season. So Halton put out a message to say they would no longer be competing this year. Obviously, I think a lot of people were having a bit of go at them for dodging games, and clearly that seemed to be the case. However, it is a shame we've lost them. In 2019 they were an extremely good Division 2 team and looked like they would be able to sustain it into Division 1, but I believe they've lost players, coaches, even their general managers gone. So maybe they just need this year back just to build. And we don't have any COVID cancellations this week, as far as we're aware. If we are wrong, I'm sorry, but that's great news. Broken / safety teams, DC, I think, were ruined what they had left from Northumberland last week. And Humber came out and were completely honest and said, we don't want to get hurt, we don't want to get gubbed by a team that are way above our level. So, again, I've no problems with that. Everybody knew that some teams shouldn't be playing others, and for them to just come out and say, look, we're holding our hands up, we're not playing Sheffield, we're not stupid, then bravo. However, scumbag move has been added this week, and for good reason, eh, Chris?
Yeah, the Jurassic Coast Raptors broke my heart this week. I picked them to beat the Torbay Trojans. They went on to win against Torbay. I declared myself as the Raptors' #1 fan, and then less than 24 hours later, they pulled out of the next game. They crushed my soul. They absolutely crushed me. Immediately had to retract that statement. So thanks very much. You've made me look like a world-class tube. So I appreciate that, the Raptors, for that one. So yeah, I've spent a lot of week in a spiral of shame for that one this week. So thanks to the guys down that way.
And you know what's the single worst thing for me about this is you beat the Torbay Trojans by only 12 less points than the Apache did.
And now so it's not like the Apache.
Now you won't play the Apache. 12 points of difference between you thumping them and Apache thumping them. But you won't play Apache.
You look at the two other games that won't go ahead this week. Humber were very open and honest about the fact that they were going to be playing against a very good Sheffield team. And the Humber are a Division 2 team that are trying to build themselves up. They've had a difficult first couple of seasons. They've started this year very well. Yeah, they had a fairly significant loss to the Rams last week, but I can understand their position with that. The DC Presidents came out of nowhere. I mean, they've apparently become a Division 2 team, but I didn't see any associate games or anything in 2019.
I think this is their associate year, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. See, I would say that, but I think there was an official announcement saying they'd been admitted into the league, and I have no idea why that came out. It was as much of a surprise to me as anybody else, but they went up against a playoff team in Division 1 playoff team in the Northumberland Vikings, and by all reports, there was onside kicks after every score, going for 2 points after every touchdown, and DC couldn't carry on after half-time. So no one's expecting them, if they're not able to carry on after half-time one week, to play the same opponent in 7 days' time and be fine to play a game. So I'm not surprised by that. I think everyone was waiting for that one to be announced. But yeah, the Raptors pulling out against a fellow Division 2 team after beating another team by almost the same score of margin, that hurt my soul, that one. As a football player, I couldn't stomach it.
I think that's the biggest worry for the Raptors with this, is that it's not a higher level team. Mm. It's a team that they will have to face next year in their division. Yeah. I've got to be careful what I say because I only live just down the road from them.
Don't want your house getting egged.
But it's something that, it's got to be a concern for them if they really are in a position where they can't face the Apache, because they're going to have to.
Mm-hmm. And I believe they asked it for it to be a controlled scrimmage, but Bristol are not going to travel all the way down there for a controlled scrimmage against a team that's in their division normally, and I can quite understand why Bristol aren't very happy about it. As I say, but again, we just point these things out on this show. We don't like to rip into folk too much, but after winning
deserved that one this
comfortably,
week.
after winning comfortably on Sunday and having Chris lured into that picture, then he's deserved to be on this list this week.
Yeah, in fairness, you're not ripping into the Raptors, you're ripping into Chris. So.
yeah.
True.
And I deserve it anyway. I get what I deserve. But yeah, I mean, the comedy is that I believe after me retracting my statement and said I was looking for a new team, I think the Humber Warhawks dropped a hint that I should be their number one fan, and then they pulled out of a game as well. So I spared myself doing it twice.
So that's that week's out of the way. Now, obviously, next we're going to go into our play of the week. So obviously, if you haven't joined us before, we picked 3 plays in the week. Now, this week there was a massive selection of plays to pick from.
Loved it.
We can only pick 3. We're not the kind of people that go, we'll just pick 5 and we'll pick 3. We think are the best. We've had some defense, we've had some special teams, and outside of a huge kick this week, which didn't make it into the play of the week selections, they're all offense this week. So we'll bring them up one by one. And as I say, we get a vote each to see which one we think is the best. But we'll go for the first one first. And this one is from the game at the Lancashire Wolverines. Now, I've seen this play a number of times now. Oh, no, don't play too fast. I've seen this play a number of times now, and it is quite a good play. But there's a photo to clarify why this is a good play. So I'll play it through first. We'll watch it through first. Okay, so QB drops back, plenty of time, deep down the right side, and what a grab that is. This is, if you didn't see this is a one-handed grab by the receiver. Let's see if I can pause it. He goes up with his right hand, and this is a one-handed grab in. And the only thing is that he's had to go to full extension to catch this ball. Otherwise, he's in the end zone with a one-handed grab, and it's walking all the way down the street with our play of the week.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that's not a floater either. I mean, that ball's got some sauce on it, so to wheel that in with one hand is fairly impressive stuff.
Yeah, it's a fairly accurate throw. It's over a DB's head. He's obviously not in the right position, but it's over a DB's head. It's a fairly accurate throw, but what a grab that is for Lancashire Wolverines. Don't know what number it is or what player it is. I haven't actually had a chance to look it up because I've been out all day, but great play. The next one comes from the Yorkshire Rams. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not very happy about this throw. But what happens afterwards is extremely pleasing to see. So this one is Yorkshire Rams. So QB steps back. He's got loads of time. Oh dear. He's through that. Oh, he's swamped. He's swamped. Nope. How does he get through all those people? So you can see there that, as I was saying, the original throw, it's a floater, let's say, but it's the work afterwards. This guy breaks through like 6 or 7 players from Humber here. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He breaks through 6 tacklers.
And then squirts out the other side like a bar of soap.
Yeah, and quite frankly, that's just the receiver doing all the work there. That's an absolute cracking play by him seeing the end zone and getting in.
That's one of those plays where the quarterback gets a 1 in the touchdown passing column that he probably doesn't deserve.
Yeah. And the last play, Steve, comes from your team. And is a bit of a cracker, I must say. So this one is a run-in play, and it's quite long. But I'll let this one run through. And there's a few things I want to discuss about this one. So this one run through. Skips over a tackle. Oh, stiff arm. Skips another tackle. Oh, he's done. Nope.
Another tackle.
Out of that one. Oh, no, he's out of that tackle. He skipped another one. He's got the sideline. So I think we can all just see that this is a phenomenal play. But I want to point out a few things here. I'll pause it here. This is the line of scrimmage back here. This is 3 offensive linemen downfield, destroying linebackers. I think it goes even further. This is their center. Look how far their center is downfield blocking someone. He blocks him into next week. And then, again, the rest of it is on the running back to skip past all these players. I mean, this guy here, I thought he makes the tackle. But nope. And this burst of speed here at the end is pretty special. So
Yeah.
that's an absolute cracking play. Now, I will ask you one thing, Steve. Is that your running back from 2019 final?
No.
Oh, God.
Number 25 is Adam Bowley, who had the MVP in the final. That's number 4, a guy called, his proper name's Jean-Alex Guillas, but we call him Titi. And he was in the final, but was probably about 3rd or 4th on the depth chart at that point. But he's just worked so hard during lockdown. Adam Bowley is his coach, so he's getting stuff from Adam. Adam's still running really well himself, so we have a dual threat there. Plus, of course, Tom Davis and a new guy we've got coming from Solent University as well. So we've got a really good stable of tailbacks. Because I mustn't forget also a fresher from Portsmouth University is running for us as well. So he's definitely developed since 2019. I think he's a bit special. I'd love to keep him at the Thrashers, but I think he'll probably end up somewhere in Europe.
Right. Well, the funny thing is that all 3 of these plays are class. They're all. One of them is just pure technique, grabbing the ball one hand. One of them is just pure wanting to get in the end zone, and the third one is a mix of everything. So, Chris, I'll give you first dibs because Steve's team's in this one. I'll give you first dibs here. But which one do you think is the best play here?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to love about all of them, and I think watching the Yorkshire Rams player disappear into a pile of bodies and then pop out the other side unexpectedly for a touchdown was incredible. But I think for everything about that run from Solent, I mean, the initial blocking downfield, it went from the right-hand side of the field all the way back to the left. There was missed tackles left, right, and centre. There was a spin move thrown in the middle just for the fun of it. I loved everything about it, and I thought when we seen the punt return from the Stallions last week, I thought we'd struggle to see him play much better than that or even close to it the rest of the season. But that one's up there, and it has to be the top one for me.
Yeah, I'm going to take this out of your hands here, Steve, and say that I believe the same thing. I think that as a wide receiver, that grab is absolutely class. It really is. If he walks in the end zone, we're maybe speaking about something different here. Yorkshire Rams, the guy's will to get in the end zone. But the pass itself originally takes it down a notch for me. But that run is something else. And it's the lineman downfield. The blocking is superb. And even once he gets to that level where linebackers and DBs are trying to tackle him, he's just running away from them. So he gets my vote. So I'm guessing he's probably going to get your vote as well, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the other 2 plays are really great plays as well. I think probably I would go for the Thrashers one because of the whole team effort in it, right up to the wide receiver. I think it's, if you watch it over at some point, the wide receiver on the near side sort of comes off the line to sort of sell pass, and then it's a run, and he sort of slows up, and then he realizes the play's coming back his way, puts the jets on, and he actually just holds his arm out in front of the tackler, which I thought was just a really classy move. So but the will to get into the end zone with the Yorkshire Rams guy, like you said, just getting away from that many people, you've got to admire that. And anyone with that technique, with the one-handed catch, brilliant stuff. They should all be proud of him.
Yeah. So we'll say TT because that's what you call him, and this is what Jamie is calling him. we will get a certificate out to you next week. You're our player of the week. I'll ask you if you want your full name printed on that certificate because it's not actually me that does it. So, congratulations, that's a cracking play. And it'll obviously be in competition for our player of the year at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think one thing as well, like, we had 3 top quality plays there. I think it is important to recognise that we did speak about there was a lot of people that sent in. We had plays from Doncaster, we had plays from Humber, Hertfordshire. The Manchester Titans put up a couple of things to look at. The Nottingham Caesars put something in again this week. So many teams got in touch with us this week to put plays forward to us. And that made it so much harder to choose, and that's what we want. So, if we can keep showing you some of the best plays in Britball, then just keep sending them in because we love watching them.
And as you speak about that, I think it's unfair not to show this play. Now, if you have watched this play, it's last week we had the ball kicked square off a guy's face and returned for a touchdown, which is ridiculous. But this one may quite rival it. So we'll just quickly play this as an added extra this week. So as QB steps back, launches up in the air.
Nobody there.
Oh, nobody there. It's picked off. Easy. Guy's coming back. Oh no, this guy's going to wrestle him. Oh, he's going to steal the ball off him. And he's going to run all the way to the end zone. So unfortunately, Craig's not liking it. Luke, Craig, you sent us it.
This is one of these plays where you say to your defensive back, "Come and take a seat next to the coach just for a quick chat for a minute," and then he disappears and you never see him again. No, I mean these things happen, but we had to share it because it's so good. It's one of those things that I don't think I've ever seen before.
I wish there was a close up of the stats man with his pencil. Like, what the hell do I do with that?
Snapping the point of his pencil with rage. But no, we love stuff like that as well. I mean, but hey, you've got to be able to laugh at it sometimes. I mean, we've all done some really, really, really dumb things on the football field, and that's not even a dumb play. He's just trying to get his extra yards after the interception. He's made a great play on the ball, and it's just went so horribly wrong for him. And I feel for him. But hey, they won the game in the end as well.
Stop sending our bloopers reel.
So we've caused internal turmoil at the Hertfordshire Cheetahs now, so that's our damage done for the week.
Well, that's that section, and that again, guys, keep them coming. The plays are absolutely brilliant. Some of them have been class. We've been having a right good time looking through them all. So that's great. We'll go on to our game of the week now. Quickly before I do, we'll talk about this later. We didn't actually know this game was going on, Daniel. We've literally only just found about it yesterday. But we will talk about it in our games. It is already slated in. So our game of the week this week. Now, I know some people are going to be like, "Are you kidding me? The Olympians are playing the Blitz." But really, we're not sure what we're going to get from that game. The Olympians have got new coaches and look like they've recruited well, and their new social media stuff is excellent. And then the Blitz have beat the Exiles twice in 2 close games. Have the Exiles improved that much? Have the Blitz dropped a little bit? We don't actually know. And this one, they both put up similar points against similar opposition, and they're obviously going to be rivals. So this is going to be our game of the week. Now, as I'm saying that, we don't know a huge amount about these two teams. We know the Essex Spartans obviously got promoted after 2019. Look like they have a really solid running game. We had 2 huge running touchdowns sent in by them. The Sabres came out week 1, proved us all wrong, battered the team they were playing in week 1. And I think this one will be an interesting game. I think the Sabres look like they have very much recruited well this year. They on their social media platforms, they look like they have a fairly sizable squad, some big guys in that squad as well. And I think that this will be a hotly contested game, whether it's high scoring or not. I'm not sure, but Chris, you've looked into the scores from 2019, did you?
Yeah, so I think both. I don't have the actual score lines written down in front of me, but both the games were fairly close between these two sides.
I think you sent me them.
they're clearly familiar with each other. But I think the biggest thing for me, you're talking about the Spartans had I think it was a 62-2 win over the Thunderbolts, and the Sabres had a 42-0 win. Okay, there's a bit of a gap between that, but the biggest thing for me was, despite the fact that these two had a close games in 2019, the Sabres were well beaten by the East Kent Mavericks, but back in their last competitive season. And this year they came out, and when we're saying about them proving us all wrong, they came out and they fairly convincingly beat the Mavericks, and what to me was obviously a shock looking at what we'd seen in 2019. So, they clearly have improved. They're clearly a better side. There's obviously familiarity between these two. They're obviously close proximity as well, and I think that's what will make this a good game.
Yeah, they were both. I think both games were 2-score games last time, both won by the Spartans. But I think even though the Sabres struggled against other teams, they obviously put up a fight against the Spartans in 2019. And now, if they've got a better squad, then I think this will be a very good game. And being Essex rivalry should be great. Right, so that's our main ones done. So now we're just going to get on to doing our games this week. Now, let me just stop sharing this junk. We don't need it anymore. So, our first game outside of that is the Birmingham Bulls versus the Bristol Aztecs. Chris, you can go first. Steve, you can follow him.
Yeah, I mean, they both won their opening game. The Aztecs beat Swindon, and the Bulls beat the Stampede. And to be honest, neither game was a surprise for any of us. I think, the Aztecs are a very, very good football team, and kind of they've been that team sort of just behind the big two in London for a couple of years at least. Anyway, so there was always that question of how much determination was there really going to be for them this year, but they came out and they beat around the Swindon Storm, and what wasn't a surprise. Yeah, I mean they're the Premier Division team. They're playing against the Birmingham Bulls, who somehow are still a Division 2 team. They get so close every year, and I don't know how they haven't been promoted yet. And no, that's not a dig for the fact that that we obviously eliminated them in the semi-finals in 2019. But they're a good team. They're a very good team. But the Aztecs are better.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary. I mean, obviously, the Aztecs are fed from Filton and their own Apache. I'm assuming that people move up through from the second team to the first. So they've got good, and Bristol's a huge catchment area, so they've got good recruitment opportunities there. They are a Premier Division team. Now you say, well, Birmingham's is probably bigger than Bristol, but there's one or two other teams in the Birmingham area that really compete. Whereas I think, the Bristol Aztecs are pretty much in a league of their own in Bristol. Apologies to anyone who thinks they're not. So I think, the game against Swindon for Bristol, the game against Birmingham against Hertfordshire, not really comparable either, because I think Swindon are the better of the two opponents there anyway. And I do think that Bristol will win this and probably win it, not hugely, but comfortably.
Yeah, and one thing that will be interesting for me in particular is obviously I do the power rankings every week, and Bristol won 61-0, but I don't believe that justified them going up. If they put 60 points on Birmingham, however, that's a totally different story. As Chris said, the Birmingham Bulls are a Division 1 team that just can't seem to get out of Division 2. In our eyes, when we played against them, they were tough. And looking at their highlights from a couple of weeks ago, yeah, they were playing Hereford, but they look like they've got a QB that's either the same QB that's improved or he's finding targets. The running backs look solid. They look like they had two good offensive and defensive line when we played against them a few years ago. So I expect them to come out and challenge the Aztecs, at least in the first quarter, and then Bristol just to overpower them. However, if Bristol come out from the word go and start thumping them, then obviously it'd be no real surprise to anybody. So that's an interesting one. 3 picks for Bristol Aztecs, not too much of a surprise. Second game, Crewe Railroaders versus Leicester Falcons. Okay, I'll go first on this one. So Crewe obviously didn't make their game with Sandwell last week. I believe it was COVID issues, tied with some other issues. But again, they walked into Sandwell. Was it Sandwell they played already? Sorry, just making sure I don't get confused. Yeah, so they walked into Sandwell. They got beat by 40 points, which isn't horrendous to a Prem team, and really did themselves justice. Now, right now, I think Leicester Falcons are a step above Sandwell. To be fair, in the past they always have been. So I do worry for Crewe here, particularly lineman wise. If they lose a couple of linemen to injury or anything in this game, I don't think it'll finish. However, let's hope that they have fitness all the way through. They battle as much as they can, and really Leicester should be putting up burgers here. Steve?
Yeah, I think Leicester a quality outfit. I think their performance against Tamworth gives you a clue to the fact that they're doing pretty well right now, and I do think they'll just unfortunately be too much for Crewe.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's still the question of whether Leicester's starting quarterback and their wide receiver are going to be available to play this week, or whether that's still an ongoing issue. I don't know. It's not really going to matter towards the scoreline of this game. And I know people are being quite harsh to Crewe when we're speaking about the teams you have to play, but when you're still talking about Leicester, Sandwell, Tamworth, Shropshire, it's not that, for a Division 2 team, that's not what you want to see at all.
Mm-hmm.
But Sandwell gave them huge props after the game against them. They really dug deep, and I expect them to do the same this weekend. But I also feel that the leniency from Leicester will not be in the same level as Tamworth perhaps showed, and I think we'll probably see a reflection of that on the scoreline.
Yeah, I would probably think so. So 3 votes for the Leicester Falcons. They're not really a surprise. Steve, you can have first dibs of this next one. A rematch of last week. We have Hertfordshire Cheetahs at the London Hornets.
I think this will be a tremendous game. Yeah, we've gone up against both teams in 2019. They're both really good teams. I think that the Hornets will be sore from having lost by less than 1 score last week, and it really is, I think, going to be a matter of who gets the breaks in this game. Because it's going to be, I think, really evenly matched. And I don't know, I think possibly the Cheetahs might just shade it again.
Yeah, I've actually went with the Cheetahs purely because I don't actually know anybody from the Hornets. I've actually followed them fairly closely in 2019. I think I was about one of the only people that picked them to beat the Cats that year. I think they will have done their film study, and they will have areas that they can go after the Hornets this week, having seen what happened last week. So I've got the Cats to edge this one, Cheetahs to edge this one, but I think it will be extremely close. I don't think it will be a blowout. Chris Warren saying here, told you it was game of the week. He did indeed. He did actually say it be game of the week.
He did tell us.
Our one ended up being a blowout, so we'll need to listen to our guests more often. Chris?
In our defence, we picked the game of the week before the guests come on. So
yeah.
I mean, it was a quality game last week. I mean, I think when you're looking at the highlights, the Thames Valley Division Fight Club. Craig, you're not allowed to speak about it, right? That's the first rule. And we've said this. We've said it all year. Like the defense being played in that division is exceptional, and that those teams are going to go into next year having benefited more than probably any other team. They're in competitive games every single week. The teams are constantly at a good level against each other, and I think that's going to pay off for those teams next year. The only thing I would say is with it is obviously I'm going to go ahead and assume that the London Hornets tacked on the extra point after that crazy touchdown. So it would have been something around 25-13, 25-14 before that chaos, probably is what I would call it. So, the Cheetahs, it was a good win for them regardless. I think that's kind of, in a week, it is difficult to overturn. We've seen it happen before, but I do think the Cheetahs will win again this week. But it'll be close. They'll be tight.
I think it will be. I think we all agree that this should be a close game, and that's 3 votes for the Cheetahs this week. So it should be an interesting watch. Really, we're hoping, one of the things we are hoping for Britball is that we get some more games live streamed, because there only seems to be a couple. Getting some of these guys in would be great. The next game, Chris, I'll let you go first in this one. See what you think of the Kent Exiles versus the first appearance of the London Warriors this season.
Yeah, I mean, Kent came out and, they were painfully, and I mean painfully close against the Blitz back-to-back games. They led at half-time in both games and ended up losing by a single score both times as well. It was brutal. So they've obviously made it, a significant amount of improvements. London Warriors, what is there, that we haven't already said about the London Warriors over the last, maybe 5-6 years or so? They've become Britball's, premier team. They recruit better than anyone else. They seem to have bigger guys than everyone else. They run faster, hit hard. They are the prime example of what every team wants to be, basically, when you look at them. On the flip side of that, I find them to be one of the most infuriating teams in existence, because I know they do this whole going dark thing, right? But as someone who's involved in all aspects of Britball, I want to advertise our best teams, and the fact that our best team disappears off the face of the planet every time. They put out an advertisement the other week for, was it a wide receiver coach? And honestly, it was the laziest thing I've ever seen. It was just a text on a black background just saying, by the way, we're looking for a wide receiver coach, send in your application. And I know they don't need to be fancy, they're the London Warriors, but the fact that they hide away, I find that really irritating. I want to know more about the London Warriors. We want to advertise the London Warriors, and they don't want to speak to anyone. On the flip side, though, on the actual game side of things, Kent obviously had 2 good games against the Blitz, but the Warriors are, different gravy.
Yeah, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors are the benchmark. Everybody looks and says that's where I want to be. Thankfully for you guys doing media, not everybody looks at their media approach and says, the way to get there is to be like that. So, it's really difficult for anybody to gamble and bet against them. The only thing you can say is that they're coming out for the first time since 2019, and the Exiles have had 2 very competitive games, and we know the Exiles have poured massive effort into their recruitment and their junior program, and I love what they're doing with their club. It's brilliant. And they definitely have recruited well too. So I can't say that the Exiles are going to win, but I think they will acquit themselves really well, and they deserve to as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things I heard earlier in the season from someone was saying that nobody can compete with these guys, the Warriors, because of everything they've got in place. Like, so you're right. They maybe don't need to put out recruitment. Like, if they put out that saying we need a wide receivers coach, they've probably got 50 folk phoning them to go, I'll come and be your wide receivers coach. And the same with players. They've got the NFL Academy that they probably have a massive attraction. People go straight into the Warriors team. They have just monstrous, like linemen playing running back. Sorry, I've had a few pints, boys. They have linemen playing running back, like that kind of size of guy. And really, it'll be interesting to see this year because Europe hasn't been so accessible this year. So any of those extra players that maybe would go to Europe are still even maybe making their team even better. Now, the interesting thing over the next couple of years will be, do they disappear into Europe to become part of this European League, or do they stay here? We just don't know. And because they're so quiet, you're right, we can't really get a gauge of them. And we'd like to share our best team with everybody else. But again, it is their decision inside their own organisation.
In fairness to the Warriors, they had a massive emigration into Europe at one point, and they just backfilled and kept on going.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Their second string, right, would probably start most places. Maybe their third string. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you have to respect that. What they built something where people want to go there. It's what we all try to do. To build a program that people say, oh, that's worth. I'm hoping we're going to do it on the South Coast. We'll have the South Coast as our catchment area, but I'm sure people like Sussex and the rest, Bournemouth and the others, will have something to say about that. But it's what you try and do is you try and make your place the place that people want to be, so that they don't travel away to go elsewhere.
I think that's what Manchester have pushed to do. I think that's what they've done. They've recruited well and over the years and got stronger each year. So they're maybe seeing the effects of that coming in this season. Before I go into the next game, I'll put it up, but our father has managed to come up with another bit of wisdom here. So an interesting story about the Olympians. They were in a shop in Oxford Street, full team kit to help Miami Dolphins Hall of Fame quarterback Dan Marino, who was out to promote the new Budweiser League in 1986. He was signing posters of himself, one of which I still have on my wall today, which he does. I've seen this picture. I know it exists.
Can I just say that, because I'm that old, right? I was around in 1986 with the White Rhinos, and we went to the Budweiser League dinner at the Connaught Rooms in London, and we collected everyone's table cards and got them signed by Dan Marino. And the club lived off the raffles that we did at half time of Dan Marino signed Budweiser. So somewhere on the Isle of Wight, somebody has a lot of those.
I bet they're worth a fortune now.
Yeah.
Honestly, they'll probably seeing some of the prices that folk are paying for trading cards online signed by famous players. Then someone could be sitting on it might be Steve.
Yeah.
Steve's Isle of Wight, is
Yeah.
It's just Dad has so many memories of the British leagues over the years, so he always has a few good stories there. But this game is massive for instance, for my personal side for doing power rankings. This is huge because this could really shake up the power rankings if this game goes either way for a big score. I don't think it will. I think it's going to be extremely close. If everything that we've seen about the Olympians online and they're bringing back their old head coach and they've recruited well and their numbers look decent, if that's true, they're out to give the Blitz a game. And I have actually picked them to upset the Blitz this week. And really that's just because I'm not sure where the Blitz are at. I really can't tell from the Exiles games whether they have really dropped that much or the Exiles have stepped up. So, but I've went out on a bit of a limb this week, and I actually think the Olympians being at home might actually sneak this one. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the games. I mean, one thing we spoke about is, wouldn't it be nice to see? Yeah, it's true. What would we like to see? Sort of the London dominance be the two dominant teams in London be split. Yes, however, by another London team, disappointing if nothing else. It's well done. London's been split by London. Great, thanks for that. But I actually put in my preseason rankings that I felt that if anyone was going to split the Blitz and the Warriors, it was going to be the Olympians. Now the question. Now we find out. Sort of this is the week for finding out. where the Blitz and the Exiles are at. If the Olympians turn up and absolutely blow the Blitz away, then suddenly we're panicking about the Blitz and the Exiles going into next year. Similarly, if the Blitz turn up and blow away the Olympians, then we're also looking at it from the other side. I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna back the Olympians, but it's gonna be tight.
Steve, I'm going to ask you before I ask your opinion here. Have you seen any film on the Olympians?
Not this year, no, because they haven't played.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to see. Obviously I've seen film from before. This is. I don't want to be that guest because Chris Warren did that last week, but this is the game of the week.
Yeah.
This is so fascinating because it's really a matter of putting your money on. Sorry about that.
You're getting a call from the London Blitz coach. Hold on, wait a minute.
That's Rick Ayab on to me saying, "Don't you dare!" Right? I mean, it's so fascinating because the question is exactly what you said. How much better are the Exiles? Does that mean the Blitz have dropped off at all? You don't know because the benchmark is the two teams having played each other twice, right? So I honestly believe the Exiles have improved. So I think that's in sort of defence of the Blitz, and the Blitz have got that advantage of having played two games where the Olympians have not been able to because of COVID. So that is an issue for the Olympians, I think. But they're at home and it's so difficult, but I think they might just sneak it. I think the Olympians might sneak it.
You're for the Olympians.
Your thing, it's great to see. Like I think, right. We've chosen a different game of the week because we think that the rivalry in Essex might be a really good game and stuff. But this game is a cracker, and it has so much bearing on the British game, that for this next coming weeks because of everything that's going on, and we get to see exactly how much each of these teams go up against each other, because when they played each other in 2019, one game was really close and one game wasn't that close.
No, actually, both games were close. I think it was 21-14 and then 15-14 to the Blitz both times. So, and that's why, when we speak about, this is why I fancied the Olympians to be that team that splits. I'll keep wanting to say the London too, but that doesn't really work. Because, as much as Kent have clearly improved, I mean, I'm not even for a minute suggesting they haven't. They clearly have improved going into this year. We're talking about like 40-point gap between the Blitz and the Exiles now being reduced to a 3-point gap and a 5-point gap or whatever it was with the two games.
Yeah.
So if that's the difference that's between the Exiles and the Blitz, are we going to see a similar thing with the Olympians and the Blitz? Are the Olympians now going to absolutely blow the Blitz away and none of us are going to have seen it coming? I don't think so, but
I don't see a blowout at all. I think it's going to be a hugely competitive game. But the championship coaching staff having returned to the Olympians, that's a big factor because they'll bring that attitude with them, and the players will feed from that. So it's going to be a really fascinating game. And you have to pick one, but you could easily toss a coin and hope.
Again, it's just a shame it's no being streamed because I'd have watched that one. Right, the next one is a bit of a different one. This is the Ouse Valley Eagles at home versus the Colchester Gladiators. Now, both teams have played. Ouse Valley have played twice, Colchester once. And I think this is what's going to make up my decision, is that Colchester Gladiators lost to the Cats, who were one of the best Division 1 teams in 2019. And they didn't lose by much. They kept the game competitive the whole way through, and I don't know how much the Cats were rotating or anything like that, but it doesn't matter. They kept the game competitive the whole way through, and a 3-score game is not much. Ouse Valley on the other side can't seem to get their offense going. However, did clearly improve from first game against Ipswich to second game against Ipswich, so they obviously learn, which is obviously a great sign. But I think that Colchester will be too much for this one. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, again, in the past, I've gone up against both organisations, admire both of them. I think that the Colchester game, their start against Cambridge, that was a tough ask for them because Cambridge pushed us really close last year. Well, not last year, 2019 in the playoffs. And I think are an extremely good team and extremely well coached. And I think Colchester's performance there is a credit to them. And I think for that reason, I would take Colchester over Ouse Valley.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about that sort of opening game, and it's one of those that always feels strange to say 21-0. That's not bad. But these two teams were both relegated from the same division. They played each other twice in 2019 and split the series. They've clearly been close before, but as when we speak about the opening games, I still feel like that result against Cambridge is probably showing more improvement than the 2 defeats to Ipswich on the other side of it. And I'm the same. For that reason, I would go with Colchester.
Yeah, so three Colchester votes there. I think the next one's going to be pretty straightforward and go the same way. Chris, I'll let you go first on this one, purely because we've watched this game, the highlights for this one.
Yeah, and I mean, similarly, kind of these teams met, 7 days ago or 6 days ago today, but by the time they met a week ago. And it was 44-0 to the Revolution. The Revolution finally got their season properly underway after only getting a half a game against the Falcons. And kind of what we seen from the Revolution was what we expected. They're kind of a high-powered offense. The defensive line was really aggressive against Leicester, and they carried that into the game against the Surge. Surge are obviously low on bodies. They've made that perfectly clear, and we've seen that from the highlights as well. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one-sided. The Revolution are going to win. I'm just hoping this game gets through to the end.
Yeah, Steve?
Yeah, same thing, I'm afraid. It's a lot to make up 44 points in a week. You have to believe that the Surge will be sitting down trying to work on a game plan that will get them closer. But I think Shropshire will be too much for them.
Yeah, and I think watching the highlights there, I'm the same. There was a lot of mistakes from the Surge side. There was a lot of plays that really were just massive plays by Staffordshire, by Shropshire, that should have really never happened. But one thing I will shout is the Surge QB had an absolute cracker of a run, where he ran over a few boys, and really all kudos to him to be doing that. And I don't think it was early in the game either. So
no, it was in the fourth quarter as well.
So
I believe.
It's nice to see them put up a fight, and I think Shropshire, as I said, I think they've got a new coach in that used to be their GB linebacker. I've seen a post from him saying that he gave one of his rookie DBs a chance to go on, and he rewarded him a pick 6. So it's good to see that this is new players coming into Shropshire as well to help this team go forward, because they have always turned up with some huge offensive linemen over the years. And if they can start getting the QB play and the skill play around that, then it could be interesting for them over the next couple of years. Steve, I'll let you go first in this next one. You don't have to answer because it's your division-ish. Division. But Sussex Sunderland.
Yeah. Okay. So again, interesting game. Bournemouth obviously had their win against Portsmouth, which looked quite promising. Then obviously Portsmouth had their problems, and then I actually saw them lose to the Knights, where I think the Knights were just tougher than them, and that helped them get through that game. The Thunder obviously have had not a great time with us, but they're not a bad team. And it's not that they weren't making plays; they just weren't making them consistently, and probably had a few too many penalties for the health of their scoreline. To be honest, I think at one point they were first and goal at the 5-yard line and ended up at third and goal from their own 47. That's too much. No team can cope with that. So I think if the Thunder get their discipline sorted, and I know we had a couple of COVID cases, so a couple of people didn't come that played in the first game. I think the home advantage, I think the Thunder win it.
Yeah, I think we've been big fans of the Thunder over the years and all their media, and it's always great. Obviously, even when they never scored any points, they still put up some cracking plays online, and really they are built. They have a big squad. They are built to go out and compete against most teams, and I think that'll be the case against Bournemouth. I think they'll maybe. I don't know how the penalties work, but I would guess it's maybe folk being beaten by just simply better players than them, holding penalties, penalties that didn't really need to happen.
Bit of frustration.
Yeah, going up against Bournemouth, they are the bigger team. They are the stronger teams, most likely. So I think that they will come out on top here. Chris?
Yeah, kind of as we've said, we have a lot of respect for the Thunder program. We've spoken about it before, and I think I put the difference in scoreline between the 2019 games and the 2021 games between yourselves and the Thunder more down to you guys than to them, if that makes sense. I see more improvement in Solent as opposed to regression in the Thunder. And I think what we were seeing from some of the film anyway was just the physicality of your Solent side was just too much for the Thunder to handle. And you can't overturn that. There's nothing you can do in 2 weeks that changes that, I think, as Sean said, the Thunder are going to be the bigger team this week against Bournemouth, and I would expect them to show that. They've got some incredible skilled players. Like, I'm sure someone will be slinging mud at me for this, but I've always felt like when I watch the Thunder, the quarterback play has been quite subpar for the skill guys they've got on the field, and I've seen some more of that in some of the highlights. Just it's hard to describe, but I always feel like they always seem like they're a quarterback away from holding some of these drives together. But I'm sure somebody from the Thunder will probably defend their quarterback and give me hell for that one as well. But this week you'd expect them to be the more physical team, hopefully without the penalties, and I think they should win fairly comfortably.
Yeah. The next game, however, how many times did you go back and forth on this one, Chris? I honestly feel like picking this one should be easy, but I don't think it's going to be. You can go first, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, but I didn't go back and forth as much on this one as I maybe thought I would. The Stampede were well beaten by the Birmingham Bulls, and that's not a surprise. The Swindon Storm were well beaten by the Bristol Aztecs. That is not a surprise. I still take more solace in what the Swindon Storm did with the Bristol Aztecs than what the Stampede did with the Bulls, and for that reason, I think Swindon Storm should win this game.
Steve?
Yeah, I completely agree. That's the way I was looking at it as well. Who have Hereford played, who have Swindon played, and if you think about our discussion about those two teams playing earlier, Bristol against Birmingham, we're saying Bristol are going to win that one. I think the performances were similar, but I think it's a tougher opposition for Swindon, and I think Swindon will win.
Yeah, and this, the one thing that got me confused is some of Hereford's wins in their associate status. Like they beat the Northern Knights. I know they lost heavily to them away from home, but they beat them. Now, Northern Knights have proved to be an excellent team. So this is where my suspicion of, I'm very critical of Swindon. That look like they're doing great stuff, right? They've got their youth team in place. They're women's team in place, their adult team in place. But this is where I'm really critical of Swindon is they tend to lose to any teams that are a bit above average, and they tend to win against every team that's below average. So what is going to be interesting to me is if are Hereford better than they looked against the Bulls. If they are, and they are a decent average team, then they might give Swindon trouble here. And that's going to be interesting for me. I have picked Swindon, and it'll either be really close or it'll be an absolute blowout. I don't think it'll be anything in between. It will be an interesting game purely because we don't really know much about Hereford at the moment. And for me, Swindon are always that kind of team that you know what you're getting from them. So we'll see how that one goes. I've got a comment here. Make sure it's not about that game before I move on. Under 19 held it. Well, bruh.
Northants.
I know, on it. I can't help it, mate. Honestly, I'm useless with this. Knights 22.
There's also an under 19 tournament today.
Oh, under 19. That's good. Oh, so they've all got the under 19 teams there. Well, that's good news, Darren. Some great things there going on.
Plural ants.
Yeah, honestly, it's my bad, guys. I'm absolutely terrible with these kind of things. Next game. Now I'll go first on this one because I had some anonymous information handed to me earlier in the week. I actually heard that Torbay were losing their head coach or likely to lose their head coach this week before it actually happened. But I'd say we don't really just like posting stuff like that out. So, but I believe that there is reasons behind it. I believe Torbay still have a big squad. The guy was saying 30 to 40 bodies, but the majority of them are rookies now. Most of their vets have left. I think the rumor was there was four or five starters from their 2019 team, veterans, which is obviously not great. But I believe there were some things inside the club that caused that. Again, that's for the club to tell us. I'm not going to sit here and say that's for sure, but that's some of the stuff that I was led to believe. Let's say that some of their players weren't extremely happy and have left to go elsewhere. So this game isn't going to be close, in my opinion. Somerset ran Apache a decent game. Apache thumped the Trojans. Raptors thumped the Trojans. Monarchs thumped the Trojans. I think it's going to be nice if the Trojans finish the season at this point. They've obviously they've lost their head coach now. He's stepped away. Finding a new head coach to come in now with the way things are, slim. If he does come in, it's going to take time, or she come in, it's going to take time. And I think Somerset have been on the up the last couple of years, and really I think they'll win this one quite comfortably. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, regardless of how I feel, Torbay are still on the banned list anyway, which led to my Jurassic Coast Raptors pick last week. You hate to see it, and if they've got the numbers and they're still in a position to rebuild, then that's great. We'll obviously want to hear that as well. This is going to be one of my most wrong preseason projections. I had them as a potential 8-0 team, and now I'd be surprised if they didn't go 0-8. Somerset have been trying to build themselves up. For me, I can't see how the Trojans win.
No, Steve.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, living in the south, you hear all the stuff that's going on, players moving between clubs. I think they went in the opposite direction previously, and that strengthened Torbay, who were a good team, and now some of them have left away again and left Torbay, obviously, as a rookie team, or nearly a rookie team. The Wyverns are a team that we helped them out in their associate year. They needed a game at the end of their associate year, and I took the Thrashers down, and it's a really well organised club, really nice people. I'm sure the Torbay people are really nice people as well, so that's not a judgment. But I think they've continued to build, and I think they will win this one quite easily.
Yeah, but I think one thing is right here is that Torbay were a good Division 2 side in 2019. They were a good playoff side. So, but at least we know there's something going on. There's nothing worse than when it's like, oh, they were a great team, now they're a crap team. What's happened? At least we know what there is something going on there. And if they have 30 to 40 rookie bodies, it's fine. It's fine to go and lose every game this season with a team of rookies, but use it as an experience to build for next year, and hopefully they can do that.
I got some feeling for that team because my very first ever involvement in American football was the White Rhinos and the Torbay Trojans joining together to play the old Southampton Seahawks. So, I hope the club finishes the season. I hope they keep going.
Yeah, I think we all hope that they keep going and build for next year. The next game, however, has done my head in. I'll let you go first on this one, Steve, actually, before I have a go about it. But the Sauce versus the South Wales Warriors.
Yeah, I really love the sauce, so that's a plus in their favour. But there is always the argument: is it Worcestershire sauce or Henderson's? And the North will pitch in and say that Henderson's is obviously. Sorry, this isn't a food programme, is it? Coming back to American football, I think the South Wales Warriors are always a tough unit. No matter, even when they were struggling and coming down from the Prem, when they played a hard season for them in Division 1 when I was at the Knights, they were still a tough team. They still fought tooth and nail. And I think, they've been on the up. They got themselves promoted. They won a championship. I think if they've been able, this was always the big problem for us, can you hold on to that momentum through the lockdown? If they've been able to do that, and they're a pretty tight unit down there, so I think South Wales will cope with this game comfortably.
Yeah, and this is what gets me, Steve. In our poll, 34% of people chose the Sauce. Like, why? Like,
because they don't like Henderson's.
Yeah, is that what it is? You see, that's just what it is. Like, going back to this argument, because
we talked about this, and there was over 400 votes. So it worked out there was like 130 people had backed the Sauce to win, and I think we were kind of caught off guard by that because we just didn't expect to see it, did we?
Well, there's no 130 people in the Sauce's team, which you'd think, oh well, they're just voting for their own team, but it's obviously other people are voting for them as well. Now they got thumped by Swindon, and really South Wales are were some level above Swindon. So, and you only need to see that by the amount that Bournemouth and the Blitz put on Swindon in 2019, and South Wales Warriors ended up going to the final against Bournemouth and beating them. So, if the playing field is the same level, this shouldn't be close. South Wales probably should walk away with this one. Chris?
Yeah, I mean obviously the biggest thing for the South Wales Warriors is they're going to be missing their most dangerous player. Just ask the Blitz quarterback about that; he'll know all about him.
You savage.
So he, they won't have him, but I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, South Wales have been sort of rebuilding themselves, as you said, since they come down from the Premier Division, got promoted in 2019, won the SFC2 Championship. They kind of, although it was, I think, 13-0 against the Bobcats, it was quite dominant. I don't think Bournemouth ever really sort of landed a glove on them. The Sauce aren't going to do that either. I think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, be interesting to see. This next game, I'm surprised Chris isn't chipped in to say this one's a game of the week. And one thing is, I'm going to go first on this one because I believe that this one will be a tight game. And the reason I say that is because Wembley, we've said that Wembley in the first two games looked solid. They're running the ball, their defense is really good. But now, did the Blitz B figure that out after 1 week? Now, if they have figured that out after 1 week, it's also given Oxford plenty of weeks to prepare for this. So are they? Do they go into this game now knowing, well, we know what they want to do? Can we stop them doing that? And then maybe we go after them. Now we spoke to Chris obviously last week, and I'm sure this is him commenting just now. Yeah, it is. It's so not. um, but what we've watched from Oxford so far is they've been giving themselves chances to score. Like they have been in the red zone plenty. They have turned the ball over plenty. So they just need to start converting. And really, if they do start converting, they might cause Wembley some problems. Now, if Wembley, if Wembley come up and they run the ball and they have a great defense, then the likelihood is that Oxford struggle. And I think Oxford maybe have some issues around some COVID players and players with COVID in that again this week. So don't know how big their squad is. Wembley at home, I think it's going to be a Wembley win. Chris?
Yeah, I mean it's one of these games. First off, I'm furious at Wembley for not making it 3 games with 19 points in a row. I was dead looking forward to 3 19-6 or 19-7 wins. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Were the Blitz able to kind of figure them out in that that 1 week? It went from that 19-7 to 14 all. It's not a huge swing, but it is a swing nonetheless. Oxford have had a couple of weeks obviously get themselves together, prepare solely for this game. I think it'll be tight. I think it'll still be a tight game. I wouldn't be surprised to see it be close, a 1-score game. Being at Wembley, I think will give them an edge. Obviously, they've got that heavy run game that they kind of rely on, as well as that sort of aggressive defensive front. And again, when we're talking about the Saints, their main issue being that sort of red zone turnover ratio. When you come up against a defense that's as efficient as the Stallions, that situation tends to only get worse. I do think it'll be close. I think it could be a 1-score game, but I still think the Stallions will win. Sorry,
Yeah.
Chris.
Steve?
Yeah, I think it should be a really good game. The Oxford Saints always come out with complete 100% effort. They're a team that I admire a lot. I think, though, being at Wembley and Wembley with a bit of momentum on their side with some decent results, whereas Oxford maybe, will be needing to go out and prove us all wrong. I think Wembley will edge it.
Yeah. So that's 3 votes for Wembley there. Now we have to welcome a new team into the league here for this next game. As I said before, we actually didn't know this game was happening. I believe it's been rescheduled to this weekend. And really, although we are still critical that some of the associate teams have got into the league and using this as their associate status, the Lancashire Wolverines just thumped the Spartans. Like, I know they got hammered by Manchester, but they just thumped a Division 1 team, and they're away to play a team that I've no seen more than 24 boys on their social media. So for me, welcome to the league just now, Lee. And I hope you have a really good game tomorrow, and Lancashire rotate loads of players in their game. However, I do have concerns about this game. I think if Lancashire come out and go hard from the word go, then Lee might not have a team by halftime. So and that seems really harsh, but I said it pre-season that really these guys should have been playing the Manchester Bees, and potentially even teams like the Sauce, but not Lancashire. And obviously they're going to probably play some tougher teams in Lancashire.
Well, they're only playing Chester Romans and Lancashire Wolverines, I believe.
Are they?
But it's not exactly the kind of teams you go. It's just Chester, what I mean? That's the team you go up. We're playing Chester this week, so it's not exactly an easy ride with the teams they are playing.
No, I think, and I say like all credit goes to Lee for actually having a team and going out there, and they're going out and compete tomorrow. But I do have my concerns about this game. Steve?
Yeah, I think this really is a worrying feature of this strange season. Under normal circumstances, associate teams would be playing against other associate teams, or maybe asking a favour of another team to come with their seconds, or bring a squad that's not going to punish what you've only just started. And I hope that Lancashire are able to get the game completed, because these guys want to play football, obviously, and you've got to admire them for that, the League Minors. It would be a shame if the game's cut short because it's too one-sided, but there obviously is that danger that that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah. Chris, you got anything to add on to that?
No, I mean, obviously the League Minors are one of these, pre-existing sort of teams that have come across from the AGL. And obviously we don't know how that's going to translate into a 11-a-side team. And as we've kind of touched on as well, the Lancashire Wolverines are no slouch. They are a very good football team. They are very efficient, and they proved that last week against the Halton Spartans. And yeah, I mean, from my perspective, kind of the same thing. I just hope to rotate enough. I hope to put in as many bodies as possible, just to kind of sort of use it as an opportunity to get game time.
Yeah,
it's difficult for Lancashire as well, because it's a game that's going to count, I assume, on their record, or is it just an additional game? I don't know.
No, it is a game against their record.
It's going to count on their record, so they're going to want to be sure that they don't embarrass themselves. It's a matter of how much insurance they take out.
Yeah, I think for me, Lancashire, if you're listening, you're not involved in my power rankings, right? You don't have to go out and thump this team, right?
You're not going to meet in afterwards either.
You're not going to get slagged off afterwards. Let this team obviously go out with your stars, because they need game time as well, and then rotate as quick as possible, and that'll be an interesting thing for Lee to see this league anyway. The last game isn't actually a game; it's a controlled scrimmage, but it's one I am particularly interested in. So we found out that the DC Presidents were broken, and the Humber Warhawks had said that they didn't want to play against Sheffield. So I obviously straight on was messaging Sheffield saying, get a game against Northumberland organised. But obviously it's ended up being Northumberland versus Manchester. So they're travelling down to Manchester for a controlled scrimmage tomorrow. And really, this will be a much better test of where Northumberland is at rather than Manchester. So Northumberland have been a top kind of tier Division 1 team over the last few years, and Manchester have obviously been kind of going up the ranks. Now they've obviously come out and they've thumped Lancashire, and then they've thumped Merseyside. This is a level to see for Northumberland to say, yeah, we are going to be challenging Division 1 in 2022 for that title. And for me, I know there will not be a score come out of this, but I will be asking around of what happened in this scrimmage to see just what kind of squad Northumberland are putting up against this really good Manchester team. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's this will be hugely beneficial for the Vikings. It can't be a thing of ego here. Like, they're going up against one of the top teams in the country now. The Manchester Titans are that. They were a playoff team in 2019 and looked to have only gotten better. So, as much as we're saying about these games between interdivisional teams, this is useful. The Vikings controlled scrimmage against the Titans. That's useful. That'll help your team. That's what works. It's a smart move by the Vikings. That they'll learn a lot from it. And I'm sure it'll allow the Manchester Titans to get some live snaps for some of their other players as well.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, same thing. I think really smart move by both teams, because Manchester to keep themselves on the boil as well. Having dead time's not a good thing for any team. So I think well done to both of them for getting it together. You said that's the last game, Chris. What about the Thunderbolts?
Oh, we've not got the Thunderbolts on our list. Are they playing?
This is all the schedules that have been changed around, isn't it? Who the Thunderbolts got?
They're playing East Kent.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, it's a double. I'm going to do an advert for Ian Ellis now. It's a double header down at Sussex University. The Thunderbolts against the Mavericks at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then the Thunder against the Bobcats in the afternoon after that one.
Well, I'll take this one from the start then. First of all, we apologise to the Thunderbolts for that. With all the changing of the schedules down there, we've obviously just, that one's kind of slipped through the net on that one. Massive credit to the Thunderbolts. Now there you go. Like it was always there. Yeah, it was on the list. We knew. They spoke about being a team in the league. They were only supposed to be playing 3 games, mostly against that Southeast Squadron setup. Then when Hastings pulled out, they stepped up and said, "Okay, we'll play 8 games." It's one of those, fair play to them for doing it. They've only been together for a couple of weeks. I said that they'd been together for a couple of months, but someone pointed out that because of the few games they were expected to play, they'd only really been together for 1 week leading before that first game. So, fair play to them for stepping up. The Mavericks obviously really struggled against the Sabres, and the Thunderbolts obviously struggled against the Sabres as well. The Mavericks are going to be looking at this as a kind of game to kind of get themselves going, get themselves back on track. On the flip side of that, the Thunderbolts will now be looking at this as probably a decent challenge of where they're at before leading into those sort of games against the Southeast Squadron. But I think the Mavericks should win it.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, the Thunderbolts were all part of the Thunder when we went down and played the first game. So they had a massive squad, the Thunder, because all the Thunderbolts were still signed for the Thunder at that point. So the Tuesday after they played us, the Thunderbolts all transferred from the Thunder to the Thunderbolts. So that's why they only came about in that period. But they had been doing some training with the Thunder. Having said that, it's an associate team. Let's be clear. It's an associate team. So it's building from scratch. The good news for them is they've got a fantastic organisation to grow within. So, like most associate teams struggle to put the whole backroom stuff together. For the Thunderbolts, it's all there. The equipment, the uniforms, the whole deal. So that's a good thing. But I think we shouldn't get away from the fact that it is an associate season for them. They should be playing other associate teams in the normal run of things. As it is, they've taken the opportunity to go into the league, and obviously they've taken a couple of setbacks. I think they will lose this game, but they're playing at home for the first time. That will be a plus for them. So hopefully they can do better. And like I said, the organisation is one that I think people would be happy to go and join that, because as a Division 2 team, because it's got all the setup there.
Yeah, and I think here we didn't know whether the Sussex Thunderbolts were players from Sussex Thunder that have kind of filtered down, or if it is really a team of rookies. And I think although they have separated out, I think it is it's mostly a team of rookies.
Yeah, I think maybe some transfers in from Hastings. I don't know. Maybe even 1 or 2 Portsmouth Dreadnoughts as well. So I think they've got 1 or 2 people from that level. But it is essentially a rookie.
Yeah, so I think they'll give East Kent a game tomorrow. I think East Kent will win, but they'll be looking to kind of give them a game tomorrow, and then for the reverse fixture, have everything in place to try and get a win. So that's good that they've got a game. Sorry guys, again, we weren't aware that was actually happening. Just before we go on, this was a cancelled games: DC Presidents versus Northumberland Vikings, and the Raptors versus the Apache. Obviously, we're not actually quite sure what's happening with Game Day Live tomorrow, with Steve being ill. However, still hashtag your game post, because if you weren't aware, last week I was watching like a hawk and posting up every score every 5 minutes. So make sure that you post your post the hashtag at the end of your score line so we can see them, and we can make sure that they're updated on Gridiron Hub's site as soon as possible. Other than that, just a big thank you to you, Steve, for coming on this week. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Really pleased to have come on. Lovely show anyway. So, to come and sit on it is, I'm really pleased to have done that. And I know Steve's watching in hospital, probably keeping all the other patients awake. So I just want to wish him all the best.
Yeah, we wish Steve all the best, and he's probably watching, shouting at the screen, going, "No, you picked the wrong one." But yeah, we wish him all the best, and thank you very much for coming on, guys. Been a pleasure again. We will catch you again next week for another episode of Britball with the Breens. Thank you very much. Catch you later.
Cheers.